Manchester United, #1 in England.
Manchester United, arguably one of the biggest and best clubs the football world has ever seen. With such a rich history, United have changed the way of English football.
One thing has been going on the top of another. It has been wonderful.
Is anyone bigger than Sir Alex? I think what he's achieved is basically, in my opinion, he's created the Premiership.
Opportunities like this don't come around all the time, and I said I didn't want to be sitting at the end of my career thinking I could have done this and I could have done that. This was definitely a step in the right direction for me.
Once I went to United, it was perfect, you know, it's everything that you wish for as a kid.
With 20 league titles, 12 FA Cups, 5 League Cups and 21 FA Community Shields, Manchester United have done the unthinkable and hold the record for the most league titles in the English sport.
I think I've achieved everything I probably set out to achieve as a young manager, coming to Manchester United, Aberdeen and things like that. So I wasn't going to let it affect my life. But equally so that there is a fulfilment in doing it.
Witness the story of Manchester United as we take an in-depth look at the good moments.
I thought that 99 cannot be beaten, but you've beaten it today.
The bad.
Goodbye.
Respect, man. Respect.
And how they became the most iconic team in the world of football. This is Manchester United and their campaign for the glory. In 1878, Manchester was a thriving industrial city in the heart of England, the birthplace of railway manufacturing, which not only employed thousands of workers, but helped power the city, and also allowed them to become an economic powerhouse within the UK. It was in the railways where Manchester United were first formed. Originally named Newton Heath due to their factory's location, their first ever game was against the engineering and maintenance workers in what was classed as the very first Manchester derby. But at the very beginning, Newton Heath did not play in their trademark red kits. Instead, they wore a green and yellow striped shirt with black lace ties as pictured here in one of their first ever team photos. Newton Heath eventually changed their name to Manchester United in 1902 after joining the Football Alliance in 1888 and moved to their new stadium, Old Trafford, in 1910. United went on to win League One for the first time in 1908 and again won it in 1911 under the management of Ernest Magnall. By the end of World War I, the football industry was the biggest it had ever been. Thousands of fans attended matches every week, with teams like Manchester City and Newcastle selling out seats at Wembley Stadium for the final of the FA Cup. Manchester United unfortunately failed to achieve any success post-World War I and were labelled as the yo-yo team because of their constant rise and fall throughout the football leagues. In 1939, Britain was at war with Germany once again. Football was still held as a morale booster, but due to the ongoing war effort, teams all over Britain were not competing at the same high standard as before. In 1941, German bombers destroyed Old Trafford as they aimed to take out the factories within the city. Because of this, football stopped at Old Trafford for another 8 years as the focus turned to the war effort and rebuilding the city. After the Second World War has ended, Manchester United were appointed with a new manager. This manager was a previous player who had achieved a lot of success during his career playing for Liverpool, the Scottish national side, and United's rivals, Manchester City. But this manager would go on to be the best United had ever had. That manager was Matt Busby.
He was the most famous manager for many years, possibly the most important manager in their history. He was the one who took them from a decent club to being, the best in the country. He could well have been the Liverpool manager at one stage. He was a Liverpool player. There's a few Liverpool fans out there now who think that would have been a bit different, wouldn't it? He was the person who drove a lot of what Manchester United became. So, for example, in particular with European competitions, he was the one who said, I want our team to play in Europe. At that time, that wasn't a good thing. The FA, I think the Football League as well at the same time, didn't really want English clubs to play in the competition. And he was the one who forced that through. And look at the legacy of it now with the Champions League and obviously English clubs doing well in it as well. So, that's just one legacy. And then you've got the playing side of it as well, where obviously he had a situation whereby he wanted to bring through the best young players and he wanted them to play football the right way. And that's continued ever since.
Going into the 1950s, Matt Busby introduced a new team lineup filled with new youth players. This team would go on to be a huge success once again, and the team were labelled as the Busby Babes.
Busby, when he came in, he had a philosophy of he liked young players. He liked them to go out there and play with no fear, so that they were exciting, they attacked more. And that was the way that Manchester United, he liked them to play, he wanted them to play. And I don't know it was necessarily too different from other teams at the time, but it was with younger players coming through. And then he had the Busby Babes, which he had a group, a lot of them coming through at the same time, and that's where he kind of developed a reputation worldwide. Because, I remember when I was growing up, my dad wasn't a Manchester United fan, but he said to me, I watched Manchester United play and I watched the Busby Babes. So even someone who wasn't a Manchester United fan and, not necessarily a football fan, he was proud of the fact that he'd seen that team play, which says everything about what Busby had created, the fact that it wasn't just for football fans, just for Manchester United fans, it's for all people out there that enjoyed what he brought.
Manchester United became England's first representatives in the European Cup. Busby was delighted by this, despite being hit with controversies by the FA. Busby ignored the criticisms and was determined to bring the European Cup home and to make them champions of Europe. United lost out, losing to Real Madrid in the semi-final of the European Cup in 1957, which devastated the United squad. But a year later, things looked to be going in United's favour when it came to winning the title.
Well, they became league champions, so to have a team when you had so many young players who were representing your club and being successful in the club and also being internationals as well, that says how good a side they were. A good analogy is if you think about the Beatles. It was a case of, I saw the Beatles at the Cavern, I saw Matt Busby's Babes in that time. It was I was there moment, and unfortunately it didn't last too long for a very sad reason.
Whilst in Yugoslavia, United went on to beat Red Star Belgrade 5-4 on aggregate, allowing them to reach the semi-finals for the second year in succession. Their title hopes were looking promising, but on their way from Yugoslavia, whilst refuelling at Munich, the United squad would face a tragedy that devastated English football and the world.
This is Old Trafford. And today, it's the heart of a mourning city. Everybody in Manchester, everybody in Britain nearly, is looking to this ground. And inside, the staff are busy answering inquiries, keeping relatives informed of the latest progress of the people who were injured in the crash. And the one question that's in everybody's mind is, how's Matt Busby getting along? It was the first thing that the taxi driver asked me when I got out of the train at the station just now.
Manchester United were playing in the European Cup, and it was frowned upon by the authorities. They didn't really want English clubs playing there, but Sir Matt Busby and the club said, no, we want to play in it. We want to go out there and we want to represent England and we want to do it well out there. And they were playing in this match, and there was a lot of pressure on them to get back because there was a fixture at the weekend. They had to get back in time, and flights are not the same as they are now. You can't have 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 a day. At that time, it was you get the one a day. They had played the match and they had to get the flight home. Now, the conditions were awful, dreadful. Now, I don't know whether pressure was put on the pilot to say, let's get this flight off the ground, but it probably, in hindsight, which very few people of us have. In hindsight, it obviously couldn't have taken off. But if it hadn't have taken off and they'd have stayed there, they would have been in massive trouble with the authorities, that they wouldn't be able to fulfil their fixture. And that might have been the end of European football for English clubs, because it might have been clubs might have said, actually, we probably don't want to do this then if we're going to get into trouble for these types of things. It took off. Unfortunately, it crashed. It was a horrific moment for the club, for the players. There was a lot of young players who died. There was staff who died. My uncle, he was a Manchester United fan, and I remember my dad telling me that he didn't talk for 2 or 3 days. And that's the kind of impact it had, in that, you had, such an exciting, such a young team, denied the opportunity to go on, even just that season, denied the opportunity to go on and possibly win the European Cup, but denied the opportunity to play for 5, 10 years. And it was devastating.
Football fans all over England were shocked by the news and sent their thoughts to all the relatives of the ones who had passed away in the disaster.
How did you feel about this trend?
Well, too full for words, really. I feel like lost a great sportsman and totally upset.
The fact that you're not a Manchester man made no difference?
It makes no difference. A fine team, and I'm very sorry.
And what's your main thought at the moment?
Well, I hope they all soon get better, and I hope, I just hope that, just no words I can express it. I just hope they pull together and try and forget all of that.
We must, of course, send a message to the bereaved, say how upset we are and distressed for them, and send our best wishes to the survivors, and hope that they get along and come back to us in Manchester very soon.
Matt Busby spent months recovering in hospital. Doctors initially said his chances of survival were no better than 50-50, but the whole of England was behind his recovery. And after 2 months, Busby was back home.
They were his. They weren't called Babes for a wrong reason. They were his kids almost. They were his. He developed them, and they were like a family to him. So for him to lose that and then have to come back to, let's be honest, it's just football, must have been tough.
In 2006, Sir Bobby Charlton, who survived the disaster, spoke out on his experience during and after the crash in an interview that was extremely personal and rare.
Well, I just put my head down. I think I put my head down, and the next thing I remembered was waking up away from the aeroplane, and I was sitting strapped into a seat, and I woke up the following morning, and a German read them out. So I'd been asleep for I don't know how long they'd knocked me out for, and that's how I found out who was alive and who was dead. I never come to grips with it. I see quite a few of the relatives, from time to time, and I do feel a little bit guilty. It's our national game. It's our national game, and we were not only representing Manchester when we went, we were representing the country. And I think that it's worth remembering. I wouldn't say remembering too much, but never forgetting, that's for sure.
The early 60s was tough for United, as they didn't seem to get any form of success, despite bringing in some big names, such as Dennis Law. The Busby Babes name was also dropped as it was seen as inappropriate for the time. The nickname for the team was changed to the Red Devils, as that name was seen as intimidating when going against other teams. Despite coming 19th in the 1962-1963 season, United did manage to come back to beat Leicester City 3-1 to win the FA Cup this same year. That following season, United brought in a new player to the starting 11. This player was only 17 when he made his first team debut and would go on to be one of United's star players. This player was George Best, and together with Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law, became one of the best attacking forces United had ever seen. Things only got better for United as they went on to beat Benfica in the European Cup final 4-1, helping United to become the first English team to win the European Cup.
The team which Matt Busby built had 3 of the best players in the world up front. If you had one of them, you were lucky. You know, you had a Northern Ireland international, you had an England international, you had a Scottish international, and all three of those teams were blessed the fact that they had George Best, Dennis Law and Bobby Charlton. But to have all three of those in the same team meant that they had a team which was capable of beating the best in the world. And they showed it on that night when they beat Benfica in extra time in the European Cup final. All of them came to the fore, all of them played well, scored important goals, and you know, that was just a fantastic strike force and a fantastic team.
Bobby Charlton made it 4-1. Manchester United had well and truly done it. They were supreme soccer champions of Europe. At last, Matt Busby, the maestro of Manchester United, had groomed a team great enough to beat Europe's best.
It's been a wonderful climax to a wonderful season for you.
It certainly has. It seems as though one thing has been coming on the top of another. It has been wonderful.
What was your reaction when you heard this news?
Well, there was a feeling of, naturally I was delighted and very proud. I felt that this has been brought about by a lot of people around me, who probably due more credit than I am. This is my wife and family, and my mother, all the football people, the teams and the players. And really, they've contributed to the position more than probably I have done.
As your career has reached each new pinnacle, the rumours have come that you're going to retire. Will you retire this time?
Yeah. Well, I keep hearing this, and I don't feel as though I'm ready for that just yet. When the directors and the club itself have had enough of me, I'll probably start considering it.
After the 1968-69 season, Busby did go on to retire. It was the end of an era for the United squad, and fans praised Busby for the work he had done with United, achieving 5 First Division trophies, 2 FA Cups, 5 FA Charity Shields, and 1 European Cup, making 13 incredible career trophies. However, after a miserable season in 1970-71, McGuinness, who had taken over the managerial role, quit due to the fans and board's lack of faith in his system. Busby was convinced to come back and put the team back in order. Unfortunately, at this period of time, United's relationship with their star player George Best was getting extremely heated, and it looked like Best's interest was on other things away from United.
Earlier, Sir Matt had watched the United players train at their practice ground. Best should have been among them, but once again he failed to turn up or send a message. Sir Matt returned to his office at Old Trafford, phoned his directors and called a press conference.
So Matt, there's some talk about George being ill in some, and this having a bearing on present troubles. Have you heard anything to this effect?
My dear fellow, I haven't heard the thing since Friday, since Thursday. Friday morning we haven't heard a thing. Saturday, Sunday and this morning.
In fact, you've no idea where he is, Sir Matt.
I couldn't tell you whether he's in Manchester or whether he's in England or London. I couldn't tell you. I had no contact. He's made no contact. And as I said to all you lads this morning, he knows where to find me. The door's there waiting for him. Yeah. I'm not going looking for George Best.
George Best was probably a first for the football industry. Certainly in this country, in the sense of he wasn't just a footballer. He was a superstar on and off the pitch, and unfortunately the trappings of being a superstar caught up with him.
This morning, United's manager Frank O'Farrell, in his confrontation with George Best, had to decide both how much punishment to hand out to his star player and how indispensable Best was to the team. United's shop is an indication of the way the fans regard Best, the biggest crowd puller in British football. He has the lion's share of the souvenir market.
You know, you look at the highlights reel now, that, you know, the goals that he scores, the tricks that he has, on the pitches that they played in those days as well. You know, you can imagine him playing on the pitches these days. He'd be Lionel Messi, and he'd have the same kind of things that Lionel Messi has now to protect him from some of the things that he didn't have quite so much protection in those days. So George Best, you know, the best player in the world at that time, but just probably the wrong era.
The club say that his problems are not new and don't involve either his girlfriends or his wages. It's thought he decided to play truant after a loss of form and depressing inability to regain it. Club officials feel his football concentration and therefore his chances of getting back into top gear are diverted by his considerable business interests, leadership of Manchester's discotheque world and life continually in the public eye.
The club feel an accumulation of these problems caused their most famous player to give in to the pressures and the strain.
After some lacklustre performances from Best at the start of the 1970s and the lack of any real respect for training sessions, Best eventually left the squad in 1974, along with Bobby Charlton, who left just the year before. After Busby's short return, United went through a roller coaster of seasons, finding themselves going through manager after manager. Tommy Docherty took over after Busby and saw United get relegated for the first time in 36 years. Dave Sexton quickly took over from Docherty, but again failed to achieve any form of success.
You know, whenever the top person leaves any kind of an organisation, perhaps certainly within a football club, there's always that period whereby it's going to be different. And when you have someone who is so successful, it's very rare that the next person who comes in can match that success. In recent years, you might have had that at Barcelona and Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Manchester City possibly as well. But in those days, it was very rare. At Liverpool, they did it, but other clubs didn't at the time. And so replacing Matt Busby was the job you didn't want. You kind of like wanted to be the person after the person. But unfortunately, they from their point of view, they never quite got it back. Well, not for many years did they get it back, and went through a huge slump where they actually dropped out the top division, which for a club the size of Manchester United is should have been unheard of.
United finally settled on Ron Atkinson in 1981, who had proven himself with West Bromwich Albion the past couple of seasons. Atkinson brought life back to the United team. They were playing attractive football again, and their new signings, such as Brian Robson, who went on to become the longest-serving United captain, became club legends. In Atkinson's second season with the club, United went on to win the FA Cup, the first trophy the club had won in 6 years. He then went on to win it the next season, allowing Atkinson to win the respect of the United fans. But this was sadly short-lived, as Atkinson found himself sacked in 1986 after almost getting United relegated due to an appalling couple of seasons. After Atkinson's dismissal, United were looking for an experienced manager to help United get back to the top of the league. It didn't take long for them to turn their attention to the extremely successful Scottish manager, Alex Ferguson.
Alex Ferguson, when he came to Manchester United, was a winner. In Scotland, since 1960s, only 2 clubs had ever won the Premier Division in Scotland, apart from Celtic and Rangers. Dundee United did it once, Aberdeen did it 3 times, all under Ferguson. They won the Cup there 4 times, they won the European Cup Winners' Cup. So to have a manager who come into a club which wasn't one of the big 2 and dominate for a good few years, 6, 7, 8 years, to dominate that division, that's a winner. But it was also successful in Europe as well, which for Scottish teams, Celtic did it, Rangers did it, but for Aberdeen to go into the European Cup Winners' Cup final and beat Real Madrid, Aberdeen, that says that's a guy who can do it on a domestic stage and on a world stage. And that's what Manchester United needed.
Despite Alex Ferguson's legacy with United, his first couple of seasons were not positive in the slightest. Ferguson stated after he almost lost his job in 1989 that it was the darkest day in his life. But with the backing of the board going into the 1990s, Ferguson was to change the team completely. And in the season of 1992-93 went on to win the first ever Premier League title, the first league trophy in over 26 years.
Happiest day of my life. Happiest day of my life. We've waited 26 years to watch United win the title. To be able to celebrate at home, it's fantastic. Absolutely superb.
It's going to be one hell of a party.
There were lots of moments where things could have changed, if it could have been different. And some of those moments, one of them occurred in the last season before the Premier League, where Manchester United were going for the league with Leeds and probably could and should have won it. They were the better team throughout that season, but Leeds just about held them off. And there was a game against Liverpool, which the Man United fans will remember, where they lost 2-0 and Liverpool fans were singing "You'll never win the league." I think they regretted that.
United amazingly followed this up by winning the league again, the first time they had won a second consecutive title since 1957. They also went on to win the FA Cup that same year, making it the club's first ever double in the club's history. Ferguson was branded as a club legend just 5 years after he had been branded as a failure. But fans were also attributing this win to one of their most recent bargain signings from league winners Leeds United. That player would be known by fans as King Eric Cantona.
At the start of the first season of the Premier League, the manager of Leeds United, who were the champions, was Howard Wilkinson, and he rang up Ferguson, was interested in signing Dennis Irwin, fullback for Manchester United. And during that conversation, Ferguson said, "What about Eric Cantona? Is he available?" And that was the first contact between the two clubs, and eventually he signed. And a bargain price got him, I think it was less than £1 million. But it wasn't Manchester United who initiated that. It was actually the Leeds manager who was the one who made the first phone call. So, pivotal moments. What would have happened if Wilkinson hadn't rang them up? Could have been a completely different story.
Sadly, in 1995, Cantona got into a vast array of league troubles after he assaulted a Crystal Palace supporter after getting sent off during their game.
Oh, what's going on here? Cantona's getting involved with some supporters. Oh, this is outrageous.
He's been dealt with by Manchester United. He's lost money. He's lost the captaincy of the French team. And he suffered a fine which is double the maximum amount which he could face in the court case.
I mean, Cantona was a massive influence on that dressing room, in particular through those first 4 or 5 years where they'd not won it. They had a person who had won it with Leeds, so you had a winner already in your squad. I think towards the end of his career, it got to the stage whereby you had players in that dressing room who were winners now. So his influence wasn't quite so important. So therefore, it wasn't quite so much of a loss that the fact that he left. If he'd have left earlier on, then I think it would have been a massive loss. But because you had, the Bruces, the Pallisters, those types of characters, whereby, winners, and they wouldn't let it happen to their football club, the fact that just one player left. And of course, you had Ferguson, who was, a winner in Scotland and now a winner in England, and the way that he dealt with all players, all scenarios, he made sure that he was the one in charge.
Despite this setback, United went on to win the league once again, even with their top scorer out of the squad. By the mid-90s, a lot of United fans were noticing that with their recent incredible seasons, Ferguson was matching the style of Matt Busby by bringing in some iconic youth players. These youth players would go on to form one of the strongest squads the football world has ever seen.
One of the most important things for Manchester United over the years has been developing young players. They did it with the Busby Babes. They did it to a lesser degree with in the 70s. In the 1980s, they had Norman Whiteside, who came through at the age of 17. He played in 2 World Cups by the age of 22. So you had players who were always coming through. And something which Ferguson as well wanted to do. He was fortunate in the sense of he got all of them at the same time. He had Beckham, Butt, Scholes, Giggs, the Neville brothers. That's may never ever happen again, that you have that many top quality players, top quality young players coming through at the same time. But they needed to be looked after because it could have gone wrong. Giggs was the first one. And Ferguson was very, very clever with him. He'd seen what had happened with George Best, and he wanted to make sure we're going to look after you. And, became arguably one of their greatest ever players. The other ones that you had Paul Scholes, who was a complete opposite of David Beckham in the sense of didn't want any media spotlight whatsoever, but loved playing football, was incredibly feisty, tackling midfielder, but quality as well on the ball. And they used him very cleverly. Sometimes he could play up front, sometimes he could play midfield, sometimes he could be that enforcer. Then you had the Neville brothers. Gary Neville, after about 20-odd games for Manchester United, was in the England team. So that's how good not only did Manchester United think he was, but also the England team. And actually his brother, pretty quickly, a lot of people thought that he would be better than Gary. That didn't quite work out like that, but he had a fantastic career as well with Manchester, and then to a lesser degree with Everton. And then Nicky Butt as well, who was, probably the lesser one of all of them, probably because he had Roy Keane ahead of him. But Nicky Butt was vital in that European Champions League final because neither Scholes or Keane were available, so Butt had to be in there, and he had to be the one who did that midfield, who sorted out the midfield. So he played a huge role in their success.
After returning from Preston North End in 1996, David Beckham went on to be one of the best youth players, as well as becoming a club and all-round footballing legend. But with his incredible skill came the endless media attention and fame that once plagued George Best back in the late 1960s.
David Beckham as a player for Manchester United was probably the best crosser of the ball in European football, possibly in world football, and he was vital to that Man United team. He worked hard, he scored goals, he set up goals. He had a great relationship with Gary Neville down the right-hand side, both for United and also for England. So you had one of the best players in Europe in that team, and you've got the likes of Scholes, you got up front Cole, York, and he would provide the goals for them. It's no coincidence that when it all went pear-shaped a little bit with Manchester United and he left, the team that bought him was Real Madrid. Now Real Madrid might well have bought him half for his media personality and what he could bring as far as selling shirts are concerned. But when he actually got in that team, who took the free kicks? David Beckham took the free kicks. When you have a team which has got Roberto Carlos, Zinedine Zidane, David Beckham was still taking the free kicks. Even Real Madrid knew he was a pretty good player.
United continued to win titles during the 90s. In 1996, they became the first English club to win the double for the second time. By 1997, they had also won the league 4 times under the management of Ferguson. But going into the 1998-99 season, United's youthful squad were hungry for more, and it was clear to see after the first few games that this was going to be a season to remember for United.
There was one crucial moment in that whole season, which might well be overlooked just on the basis of what's happened since, but Ferguson brought in a coach around about the Christmas, New Year period by the name of Steve McLaren. And a decent coach, he came from Derby. And from that moment onwards, Manchester United didn't lose a single game for the rest of the season. So it's no coincidence. Ferguson liked doing the coaching, but he also liked freshening things up and getting different people coming in, get different ideas, and that worked that season. He got someone in, fresh ideas, and the momentum built from then through the FA Cup early rounds, staying in the Premier League title. It was them and Arsenal for the Premier League all the way through, and it was touch and go. It was very, very tight. Same with them in the FA Cup. Arsenal was still in the FA Cup. Champions League, some top quality sides they're going in that as well. So there were 3-pronged attack, trying to win 3 trophies, which no one had ever done it previously. Liverpool had done it with the League Cup, but not with the FA Cup. So you had something which had never been done before. And there were some matches within that where turning points. One, the FA Cup semi-final. A few minutes to go, scores 1-1, FA Cup semi-final replay, 1-1, a few minutes to go, already down to 10 men, Manchester United, with Keane sent off. Penalty, almost likely, goal goes in, end of match. Arsenal through to the FA Cup final, probably win the FA Cup, and that might well have affected what happened with Manchester United in the league. Schmeichel saves the penalty into extra time, and Giggs scores the goal of the century and shows off his hairy chest.
Comes back at him. It's a wonderful run from Giggs! Sensational goal from Ryan Giggs in the second period of extra time. He's cut Arsenal to ribbons, and the team with 10 men go back in front 2-1.
That night, Manchester United knew, right, realistically, we're probably going to win that one. Let's concentrate on the other 2. But they had to keep on it because it was Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that, throughout the entire, from pretty much from Christmas onwards. So they needed a squad, and suspensions came in, and for all the competitions, so players, injuries, were missing from matches. Somehow they did it.
United won the league once again, and also went on to win the FA Cup against Newcastle United. But Ferguson didn't want to stop there, as the only achievement he hadn't got yet was winning the Champions League. With this title, Ferguson would have matched Busby's record and would go on to become United's most successful manager. But in the 1999 final, they had to face up against the almost undefeated Bayern Munich in what would be the clash of the Titans.
The Champions League final against Bayern Munich, first time Manchester United have been in the European final for many, many years. And young squad, missing two important players in Scholes and Keane. 1-0 down very early on. Schmeichel had been a fantastic player throughout the entire season. Possible error there, free kick, went one way, the ball went where he was stood. And then as the game went on, Bayern Munich were absolutely fantastic. Hit the post, hit the bar, created chances. And as it's going on, you're just thinking, well, is it still only 1-0? And they must have thought that as well. So it's still only 1-0. So if we can get that goal, it's into extra time. And they did, with 1 minute to go.
They've got that one away, have they, as well? Giggs plans it back in. Sheringham has equalised for Manchester United. Can you believe this?
50 seconds later, it's not 1-1, it's 2-1, and Manchester United suddenly have won the Champions League trophy. The Champions League trophy they picked up had Bayern Munich's ribbons on it, because they didn't have enough time to take the ribbons off to put Manchester United on there. That's how crazy it was.
Despite United having an extremely young and inexperienced side, thanks to a last-minute goal by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Manchester United had made history and became the first club in English history to win the Premier League, the FA Cup and the Champions League, all in a single season.
Beckham to swing this one in again. Sheringham wins it. Solskjaer with the goal for Manchester United.
Ferguson's United had done the unthinkable. He had also become the most successful manager in the sport.
Well, Alex, many congratulations. Has it sunk in yet?
It has now. I was flat after the game because I just couldn't believe it. And when I got back to the hotel and saw my family, then I was able to enjoy it then.
Now, what does this success mean to you personally?
I think I've achieved everything I probably set out to achieve as a young manager, coming to Manchester United, Aberdeen and things like that. So I wasn't going to let it affect my life. But equally so that there is a fulfilment in doing it.
Moving into the 2000s, United were on top of the world thanks to the motivation of winning the first ever triple in English football. They went on to win the Premier League in 2000, 2001 and 2003. But unfortunately, around this time, the relationship between Beckham and United was breaking down. And on the 1st of July 2003, Beckham was sold to Real Madrid for a fee of £33.7 million.
You know, I've joined a club that is a massive club. You know, if I was going to leave Manchester United at any time in my career, then to join a massive club like Real Madrid is a dream. I think that I will miss the fans and the players that I've grown up with because I've regarded the players at Manchester United as my family. And, you know, I've got a lot of very special friends there, a lot of special people. Everyone's been very kind to me in Manchester and looked after me for 13 years. And obviously I'm sad to leave them, but, you know, I'm joining Real Madrid, and that for me is as exciting as it gets, to be honest.
With Beckham's departure, Ferguson was in need of a new number 7. In a pre-season friendly between United and Sporting Lisbon, his prayers were answered, as he went on to sign what would be one of football's greatest players ever, Cristiano Ronaldo.
The story goes that at half-time, the Manchester United players have been
and became the top scorer season after season. 2005 saw United under a lot of backlash as the club were to be bought out by US tycoon and NFL owner Malcolm Glazer. This deal meant that Glazer owned 75% of the club, taking away all of the fans' say in the club's management. This deal sparked a vast array of outrage by fans who wanted Glazer out immediately.
There was a change in ownership at Manchester United and change in philosophy because it was deemed that the club then, any money which was being made was just going to go to shareholders as opposed to go back into the club. And there's a lot of backlash against Manchester United, and it's never stopped, to be fair. But the only one it was is that it actually made Ferguson's life a little easier because he didn't have to deal with quite so many people. Then he just literally deal with a couple of the family, and they carried on winning the leagues. I think the first 3 years after the takeover, they won the league 1, 2, 3 years on the trot. So it was very, very difficult for United fans to have a real good go. I mean, they did when your team's being successful on the field of play. And Ferguson was still there. If Ferguson had left, that would have been a different matter, because then they could have blamed the Glazers for Ferguson leaving. But he didn't. He stayed, and they carried on doing what Manchester United do, and that's winning trophies and being, not only that, the best team in Europe as well.
Despite the ongoing protests regarding the ownership of the club, United continued to sign some pretty big names, and in 2006 went on to sign the young striker and Everton wonder boy, Wayne Rooney.
Wayne Rooney's strengths were he could score goals, he was skillful, he was hard. You know, he could do a tackle or two. Very strong, particularly for his age. He picked up a few injuries, but generally speaking, he was injury-free for a lot of that time. You feel for him from an England point of view, because the fact that all the burden was put on him to try and save, which was a pretty ordinary England time post Gerrard and Lampard. He was the one who was supposed to take England on. But for Manchester United, he fitted in perfectly because he wasn't the be-all end-all at Manchester United. There are lots of good players. You know, if you put two men on Ronaldo, Rooney will score, and vice versa. So he was perfect, the pair of them together.
United went on to win the league once again in both 2007 and 2008. But Ferguson didn't want to stop there and wanted the glory of winning the Champions League once again. But to achieve this, they had to beat their English rivals and biggest competitors, Avram Grant's Chelsea.
At that time, Manchester United were overhauling Liverpool's record.
And I scored a goal and I missed the penalty. I feel, well, the bad day of my life, the worst day.
The worst day of your life.
Oh my God! But the lads, they do the proper job.
Is this your best team?
I think it's going to make us the best team. Yeah, it's an amazing achievement, fantastic achievement, a great team, great team.
And what about another European Cup for Manchester United?
Fantastic. Oh, we deserve it.
United had done it again and won their fifth double under Ferguson. Unfortunately, once again, Ronaldo was one of the press conferences because of this constant media talk.
Could someone send my violin case over, please? Huh? I'm not discussing that. Okay, the matter's closed now. He's a Manchester United player, it's finished.
It's okay. Would you like to say
it's finished.
About the situation of Cristiano?
Yeah, he's finished. He's here. He's going to be a player here next season, believe me. It's all over.
But on the 1st of Real Madrid for a fee of £84.6 million, becoming the most expensive player in the sport. This recent loss of Ronaldo didn't stop United from achieving success. Thanks to their loyal players such as Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville and Rio Ferdinand, they went on to win the league again in 2011, helping them with 19 Premier League trophies. Ferguson also became the most decorated manager in their history, with 12 Premier League titles, 2 Champions League wins and 4 FA Cups. It was the height of their success, and it felt like nothing could go wrong for United.
The rivalry between Manchester United and Liverpool has been there for many years. When I was growing up, it was called the Clash of the Titans, or the Clash of the Giants, and even that was when Liverpool were by far the best side and Manchester United for long periods, weren't even the second best side. But that was always the game that you wanted to watch. It was the one which meant most, even above the derbies, you know, Manchester against Man City or Liverpool against Everton. Still that Manchester United-Liverpool game was still the big one. Then there was comments made by Kenny Dalglish and other people to Ferguson, and when they were saying those, they were, you know, Man United had 10, 12 less titles, so you could get away with saying it in the knowledge that that's all right, they'll never catch us up. Well, they did pretty quickly. Yeah, we've won more league titles than you. Liverpool will turn around and say, well, we've won more European Cups and more trophies altogether, but ask any Liverpool player what's most important, winning the domestic league. Same with the Manchester United player and same with the managers.
In the season of 2012-2013, United went on to win their 20th title, thanks to a wave of new signings, such as Robin van Persie, who helped boost their success. By the end of the season, United fans and press were shocked with the announcement made by Ferguson.
Ferguson had announced previously that he was going to retire, and he'd done it halfway through a season and said at the end of next season, I will retire. And when they got into that season, he felt he'd lost his players because why play for this manager because he's going to be going at the end of the season, and they did pretty poorly that year. But he relented, decided, no, I'm going to stay on. So second time around, he was going to make sure, right, I'm not going to announce anything until we've won the league. Now at that time, Manchester City had arrived. You know, they weren't just the noisy neighbours, they were the ones who were the team to beat. Ferguson wanted to make sure that he didn't end on a season whereby they weren't champions. So during what turned out to be his last season, no one really knew at that time that was the case. He made sure that his team won the league that season, and as soon as it was mathematically certain, then he announced that he would be leaving at the end of the season. Was it a bombshell? Probably not too much of a bombshell, just on the basis that he'd done it previously, and on the back of winning the league, it seemed like the perfect time. But it was a bombshell in the sense of, now we do have to find a replacement. And that proved very difficult.
Alex Ferguson had retired from the club. It was the end of a glorious era as they said goodbye to their longest-serving manager, who had led them to becoming the best team in the world. Off the back of this departure, United were looking for their new manager. Rumours were speculating some big names, and the media turned the search into a big guessing game. With Pep Guardiola and Mourinho out of the question, one manager would remain. That manager would be the former Everton manager, David Moyes.
Alex Ferguson didn't make many, if any, mistakes during his time at Manchester United, but he made one crucial one right at the end. And that was not necessarily that backing David Moyes, as in backing him with the board, but in public he didn't back him when he did his speech for his last match at home. He stood on the field and he said, just remember, when things weren't going well for me on the field of play, we were backed. I was backed. You are going to back your new manager. And that sends out a mentality and a message to the fans is that your new manager is going to be rubbish. You're going to have to back him. He never ever would have said that kind of message in public. And that's a message we got through. You know, it's almost a case of, you know, giving David Moyes there's my ship, and then just as you send it off in the distance, you just send a quick message to everyone on board, by the way, it's going to sink. And guess what happens? Everyone on board panics.
Moyes did win an FA Community Shield in his first official game with United, beating Wigan Athletic 2-0. But within his single season at the club, only managed to get them to 7th in the league. After 10 months in charge, Moyes was dismissed. He was the shortest-serving manager in United's history, with ex-players like Dennis Law and David Beckham stating he deserved more time.
Frustrating season, I think, for everyone. You know, you win together and you lose together. And like I say, these 4 remaining games, I want to bring some positivity back. I want to put smiles on the faces. We've got 3 home games at Old Trafford where our form hasn't been great. And I want to see goals, I want to see tackles, I want to see players taking players on, I want to get the crowd up, and I want the passion that should come with being a Manchester United player.
Ryan Giggs became the caretaker manager for the last 4 games of the season, but failed to impress the board. Going into the 2014-15 season, United looked to sign a highly experienced manager who could take the club forward in a new direction. That new manager was Louis van Gaal, who had a great track record of success with other European clubs.
I think we expect to hear that Van Gaal's going to be appointed this week. Is he the right man for Old Trafford?
But you hope so. Again, only time will tell. I felt David Moyes is a good choice. Obviously, felt he should have maybe got a bit more time. But Van Gaal, obviously, vastly experienced manager. Worked at big clubs, Bayern and Barcelona. Has been involved in national teams before. So, yeah, fingers crossed he'll come and do the business.
They say that he's quite a disciplinarian. Is that what the club needs at the moment, do you think?
Possibly so, but again, different managers like different styles and different character traits. And yeah, I've heard that before. He's pretty strict in terms of timekeeping and stuff like that. But listen, you know, if you can't be on time for work, there's something drastically wrong. So fingers crossed he'll come in and, you know, United give him all the backing and the support that he needs. And hopefully he'll get a lot more time than David Moyes is given.
Unfortunately, once again, this role was unsuccessful and short-lived. By the end of Van Gaal's career at United, press conferences were getting heated as the pressure was weighing up on his job, leading to Van Gaal walking out on a few of them.
Has anybody in this room not a feeling to apologize to me? Nobody has that feeling? I wish you a Merry Christmas and maybe also a Happy New Year when I see you. And enjoy the wine and a mince pie. Goodbye.
So Louis, you're not taking pressure from the newsmen? No.
Van Gaal was given more time than David Moyes, but in May 2016, Van Gaal announced his retirement from football, 2 days after winning the FA Cup. Once again, United were having to look for a new manager. Luckily, after the firing of Jose Mourinho at Chelsea that same season, United had an open target and approached him for the role. Despite United and Chelsea's long rivalry facing against him multiple times in the Ferguson years, Mourinho joined United on the 27th of May 2016.
I think with Jose Mourinho, everything's exciting with him, whether it's good or bad. There's always a story, there's always excitement, so United fans will love that.
Under Mourinho, things looked to be improving, with United getting to the top of the league. Mourinho also helped United to go on to win the Europa League and the English Football League Cup that same year, earning United another double to add to their collection. After a phenomenal first season, Mourinho's United started to slip up once again. In the season of 2017-2018, they finished second, 18 points behind their closest rivals, Manchester City. They also failed to gain any silverware in any of the other competitions they were in.
I'm really, really happy with the players that I had on the pitch, with their attitude, with their effort. I'm more than happy. I'm more than happy. And because I'm more than happy, I assume the responsibilities of the defeat, and I want them to be hidden behind me. They gave absolutely everything.
That following season, pressure was mounting on Mourinho once again. Inconsistency was weighing on the club once again, and the media was focusing on why Mourinho was failing as a manager. In a constant tussle with the press, Mourinho finally lashed out at a journalist in a post-match conference after losing 3-0 to Tottenham at Old Trafford.
Now, just to finish, do you know what was the result? 3-0. 3-0. Do you know what this means? 3-0. But also mean 3 premierships, and I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together. 3 for me and 2 for them. Respect, man, respect.
A few months later, Mourinho was fired from United, and it was back to the drawing board once again. By the start of the 2018-2019 season, United was struggling to find anyone for the management role. In an act to boost morale for the players and the fans, the board appointed the ex-player and club legend Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the caretaker management role. But with his appointment, United's results flourished as they went on to win game after game. Within a few months, the United board hired Ole as their new manager.
I didn't even see the announcement of Ole coming. It was a really big surprise that they picked him. I thought they'd go somewhere else, you know, some of the former players who's had bigger clubs, who'd been at the club but are, you know, from different other parts of the country, of Europe. It was kind of a clever move because Ole's worked with Pogba, he's worked with Lingard when they were in the reserves, and they have huge respect for Ole. Everyone has huge respect for Ole. The potential as a coach was very, very early on. It was very clear that he would be a really good coach.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? We'd all love to have it. And when we kind of forget that when Ole came in, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came in initially as a temporary manager, the results went straight away for a good period of time. It wasn't 1 or 2 games, it was over a 15-game period. I think they won 12 or something like that over 15 games. You'd have been brave board to have gone, no, we're not going to go that, we're going to go somewhere else, because you'd have got crucified, because they'd have gone, well, what on earth, what more can he do? But then as soon as he was given the job, then it went. Now, why is that the case? That's got to be a bit of mentality down to the players. You know, I don't imagine for one second that Solskjaer would have changed. He still would have been doing the same things he did during those first 15 games. But the mentality of I'm playing for temporary manager, right, let's get, yes, I'll work for you, I'll work for you, work for you, work for you, and then suddenly when you become the full-time, it's, all right, okay, well, I don't know whether I want to work for you for 2-3 years. And the personnel has changed a little bit, and he'll have to change it a lot, because the policy of bringing in young players as well that's dangerous, because that's, you know, we talk about the Busby Babes, you talk about the class of '92. You know, these were quality players, really, really good young players, but they also had some senior players around them. I don't see too many senior players around the Manchester United players in this Ole Gunnar Solskjaer squad, with the exception of Pogba, Mata towards the end of his career, and some of the other ones are the ones who are getting slammed more than any. You know, Phil Jones and Lukaku's left. So there's no balance there. And is that his fault?
To this date, Ole is still at the wheel and continues to build a new, young United side. With the same mentality as Ferguson and Busby, Ole looks to be trying to encourage young players to see their real potential. And although they aren't what they used to be in the glory days, maybe in the near future, United could bloom into the legendary team like they did in the early 1990s.
You've got to be patient. You have to know that to build a team and rebuild a squad, it will take time I'm not going to ask for too much time, because as a manager you're also under pressure to get results straight away. They want us, or maybe not results, but maybe the way we want to play football. So I hope with the way we approach the games now, the fans will see what we're trying to do and the results will come.
The results they've still been inconsistent, but the performances have been getting better, so we can see where we're heading, and obviously there's a lot of young players in the squad and in the starting 11, so we're sort of learning as we go along, but you know, hopefully we can, you know, it's the first time we've had back-to-back wins in the league, so hopefully that can start something off for us and we can get used to just getting results and performing.
United have had a long and rich history behind them. They are still to this date the Premier League's top-winning team. They have also become one of the biggest brands in the industry, selling millions in merchandise all over the world. With over 650 million fans worldwide, it's not hard to see why Manchester United is a recognisable image known everywhere.
They'll always be there or thereabouts, and the size, you know, you can't pick a number and say, you know, they throw the statistics out, the richest club in the world this year is Real Madrid, and last year it was Manchester United. Go and, you know, go into somewhere in Thailand or whatever and walk up to someone and say, which football club do you know? And they'll pretty quickly, Man United will be one of the first ones they say.
With the statues of Matt Busby, Alex Ferguson, as well as the Munich air disaster memorial clock, United's history will always be remembered, no matter what happens to them on the pitch over the seasons. Everyone will always know the team name, Manchester United, and will always know of their hard-fought campaigns and how they achieved their glory.